still says it's 6:59. Now it's 7 o'clock. Thank you. Gotta keep things legal. Appreciate everyone being here. Welcome you to our council meeting this evening. We do have a couple of public hearings this evening, and so if you're here to speak at one of the public hearings, there are forms out on the podium out there. If you'd grab one of those and fill it out and turn it in up here to Wendy, our deputy recorder, as well as the form out there to speak just at our public comment section. So we'll go ahead and get started. Turn the time over to Councilmember Roper for our opening ceremonies.
If you all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our Father in heaven, we are so grateful for this opportunity we have to gather in this public meeting to be able to conduct the business of Clearfield City. We are grateful for our freedoms that we have this ability to be able to discuss our opinions and be able to govern ourselves. We ask Thee to bless our first responders, our police and our firefighters, along with our military, that they may be protected and be able to return home safely to their families. We are grateful for the residents of Clearfield City and pray for them that they may have a willingness to serve and to help make our community a great place to be and to reside within. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tim. We don't have any minutes to approve tonight. Well, I didn't have them very often. Well, that brings us then to item number 1, which is our first public hearing to receive comment on the request by Sunset City to be annexed into the North Davis Fire District boundaries. Yeah. And this is the one that's being reset, correct? Okay. And so the public hearing, we'll maintain that public hearing tonight, but it is being reset to September 26, 2017. But with that, where it's been published, we felt it was good to go ahead and allow people to speak either way. So we will go ahead and declare the public hearing open. This is one that's been going on for a while as far as our annexation, the fire district's annexation. This is not a Clearfield City annexation, but this is a fire district annexation to bring Sunset City into the fire district as a member of the fire district. And so that process started roughly April, May, I guess May, when it really started kicking off, and is moving along at this point. It's just the formalities and the legalities at this point of making this happen. So we wanted to open that public hearing. Is there anyone here? I don't have any forms. Is there anyone here to speak in regards to the annexation?
You're on. Mayor McFarland from Sunset City. I just want to know what that means, reset anew. What does that mean?
Nancy, would you like to give an explanation of that one? It's a city recorder answer.
Okay.
That means that we're resetting the public hearing for a new date because there was a publication error. And so we have to reset it so that we can meet all the statutory requirements.
Okay, so it's going to be publicized first, and then that'll be reset.
Yeah.
So will we go through this process again on September 26th?
Yes, we will. We will have another public hearing, yes.
Hearing. So we're just hearing from anyone today?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thanks, Beverly. Is there any other comment?
I'll just let you know, we do have...
You could pull the microphone down. That'd help us.
Yeah, I know, I'm short. We do have a group of people that are coming to speak, but because they saw at the last minute that it's being reset, that they decided not to come, but I can answer questions if you want. Because being as there was the petition signed and that's gone forth now, so I know they are going to ask for it to be tabled until the results come in.
Okay.
just so you know.
Yeah, can you state your name and address for the record?
It'd be confusing because my name's Terry Avondet, and I now live at 629 West, 450 North in Clearfield. But prior to that, I lived for 20 years in Sunset, so how's that?
Well, welcome. We welcome you in.
So I get to be real confusing. So, but that's-
Thank you very much. Okay, if there's no other public comment, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Your Honor, I'd move to close the public hearing.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That'll move us on to item number 2, which is a public hearing, our second public hearing, to receive public comment on a rezone request for property located at or near 1200 South State Street, 1250 South State, and 1400 South State, or South 1000 East, excuse me, from M1 Manufacturing and C2 Commercial to MUSP, Mixed Use Special Purpose. There's JJ. JJ, you want to give us just some background there? We know what this is, but for everyone else's,
Well, I'll let Spencer give his presentation with the slides, but just a quick update on where we stand with the Stadler Rail project with Clearfield Station. I spoke this morning with Martin Ritter from Stadler Rail to get an update on their decision, and the bottom line is they haven't made one yet. We've known for a few weeks that there are 2 sites in contention, Clearfield Station and a site in Salt Lake City. Both sites have advantages and disadvantages. And if it were an easy decision, Mayor, as you said earlier, they would have made it already. So I don't know how close it is to a toss-up, but next week there should be a decision from the CEO of the company, followed within a few weeks after that by formal action by their board and executive board. So shortly we should have some clear direction and be able to move forward or not. Right now we are in a holding pattern, with the exception of some things like we can do tonight with this rezone on what we're calling the remainder parcels, which would be under UTA ownership if we're able to purchase the property for Stadler Rail. What remains is what's under consideration tonight for this rezone. So with that, I'll turn it over to Spencer unless there are any other questions for me.
okay, thanks, JJ.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, public. Appreciate JJ's insight too. This request is a rezone request, a collaborative effort between Clearfield City and Utah Transit Authority, or UTA. This came about, again, with the discussion for Stadler Rail. Stadler is proposing to locate on this site, which is the Clearfield Station site. They'll be taking approximately 24 acres of property, or be purchasing that property from the city after the city purchased it from UTA. But we need to address the remainder parcels. The UTA board became concerned that there would be remainder parcels that need to be addressed relative to development and those types of opportunities. And so with UTA and Clearfield City, a application for a request to rezone these properties from M1 and C2 to MUSP, which is manufacturing commercial, to a mixed use with a special purpose overlay for the purposes of giving the property owner, or UTA, a little bit of comfort relative to the future development of these particular parcels. These parcels, as they stand now, would be subject to the TOD design guidelines. The city has worked with UTA on that. Subsequently, from that process, there will be additional things put in place. We realize that the MU zoning designation requires certain things. That's where the special purpose overlay comes into play, that SP overlay. The remainder parcels will only be about 29 acres. Our MU zone requires 40-acre minimums, and so the SP overlay is meant to address that one issue. Additionally, the MU zone with the SP requires that there be a master development plan and development agreement executed relative to the zoning on those properties. The TOD design guidelines that UTA has enacted and that the city has reviewed give the basis for us to kind of go down this process of looking at the design guidelines and still getting to the point where we would do a station area plan following this. Station area plan will lead to a master development plan and then a development agreement executed on the property with the developer as the city and UTA work together in that. So this is to give you an idea of the remainder parcels that we're discussing. Again, the 29 acres is that shown in yellow. which the zoning designation would apply to. And then this is just to give you an idea of the Stadler site, which is here central, shown here. That's right, I forgot you can't see my cursor. It's the white, it's the Stadler site, the large white site, and then the Thackeray Garn Apartments are that square site in the southeastern side there. Staff is recommending approval of this with conditions outlined, and happy to answer any questions.
So the rezone of the property is you know, we spoke earlier, only happens if the
Contingent
purchase
on-
happens. It's
right.
contingent upon that purchase.
There's a lot of dominoes that need to fall in order to do these things. The city and UTA working together are putting all those ducks in a row, so to speak, so that if things happen, that we have everything organized so that it can happen the way it ought to. So.
I was just a little concerned that we rezone the property and then
Correct. I should
and then have them go away and have UTA say, "Yeehaw! Look at this! Look what we got."
And Mayor, I apologize. I should have read the conditions of approval, which give a little bit more context that there are certain things that need to happen for this zoning designation to be enacted and in place and to hold. Otherwise, all of that, you know, doesn't happen. So.
Very good. Well, thank you, Spencer. I'll go ahead and declare the public hearing open. Was there anyone here to speak in regards to the rezone? Okay.
Your Honor, seeing no public comment, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That brings us to our citizen comment period. I don't have any forms from anyone to speak tonight. Was there? I don't want to take that away. Is this for the, okay, and this was in regards to the piece that we talked about earlier. Okay, well, very good. Well, that moves us on to item number 4, which is to consider approval of Resolution 2017 R-10, announcing the intent to annex the boundaries of Sunset City into the North Davis Fire District. This is the formality, again, of us announcing our intent as the governing body, or the, I guess we are the governing body for the North Davis Fire District. At some point that may change, but at this point we are still the governing body, so we need to have that that intent to announce the intent to annex into the boundaries of Sunset. Council, any concerns, questions? Very positive thing, but not, I would entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I move to approve Resolution 2017 R-10, announcing the intent to annex the boundaries of Sunset City into the North Davis Fire District, and authorize your signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Roper?
Aye.
Councilmember Peterson?
Aye.
Councilmember Young?
Aye.
Councilmember Phipps?
Aye.
Councilmember Bush?
Aye.
Okay, that is unanimous. Item number 5 is to consider approval of Resolution 2017 R-11, adopting and certifying a tax rate for the North Davis Fire District's 2017 tax year. The Fire District met last night, went over our tax rate and the purpose of maintaining that rate. We haven't, as a district, really maintained that rate. We've kind of let it ebb and flow pretty much forever. We are to a point where that just really doesn't work. The tax values on our properties just have skyrocketed, and when that happened, the county, of course, takes and tanks our rate to go with it, and just to keep us whole. Unfortunately, with inflation alone, as well as payroll, insurance, and everything else, we've reached that point where we need to maintain that rate, as we have as a city for most years. So that was the proposal for the fire district last night, and that passed with a unanimous vote. And so, because again we are the governing body, it comes to us now for approval tonight to adopt and certify the tax rate for the North Davis Fire District's 2017 tax year. So, any questions or concerns, council?
Yeah, Your Honor, I know I haven't been involved in the details of all of this, but this always bothers me. Anything that deals with a tax increase bothers me. So I guess the first question is how much additional revenue is this going to be providing to the district? Do we have?
The increase on a $200,000 house was
Right around there.
about $11 a year.
So and the total increase in revenue?
No, I don't have that one for me. It was 137, correct?
137,000, okay. So, these are obvious questions, but just to lay it out on the table, so that 130,000, was this, you mentioned labor cost and insurance and things like that. Is that, was this unanticipated expenses that or the thought was that these are things that we always knew we were going to have as the nature of doing business increased?
It is. I mean, again, for 10 years that the district's been in place, they haven't raised taxes at all, which is an absolute miracle, that they have never once had to raise taxes, nor really maintain the rate. They have run so frugally, frugal to the extent we discussed last night that when we redid our ambulance, in lieu of buying a new ambulance, we were able to go to a company and have them build us almost from scratch a refurbished ambulance that'll last us for, well, it's got a brand new engine, it's got a brand new just about everything except for the chassis in it. Saved us a couple $100,000 by doing it that way versus what it would have been. They've run extremely frugal. Costs have really just caught up to the district, that they've just been able to kind of defray. With the tax, with that change in rate, the fee in lieu also changed. And really, and Catherine, luckily, as a resident, brought that up last night, asking if this maintaining the rate was enough to compensate for that loss in the fee of lieu, because the way that works, we lose with that change, and it's not. We'll still be running frugal. It's not a, wow, here we have extra money. It's still running very lean. But we've got to be able to pay our firefighters more. We're not there. So this factors in some of those changes. We also added a couple of positions to more efficiently run the fire district. We've put a lot over the last 10 years on our chief and deputy chief to truly run everything. We're now a fire district of 3 cities, and typically when you've got 3 stations, you end up with battalion chiefs. We're not 3 stations, but we are 3 cities, and so we've got the same problem. And so they've created a new position within there that will be a battalion chief, and we'll have 3 of them, but we've got to be able to have it to run efficiently.
Well, some of the root is because, I know you're aware, Mayor, I was on that board for 4 years, and we didn't do it back then, and so that's the root of some of mine, is why were we able to get by before, but now we're not, so.
We pinched about as long as we possibly can.
And we brought it up last night, a lot of inflation's taken place to, just a lot of the costs and stuff have come up to maintain it.
And I think it's an important reminder to point out that it's a tax increase in absolute dollars, but it's not like your income tax, which is a set percentage of what you're earning. They've been, for 10 years, I think it's pretty impressive that they've held the same absolute dollar tax rate to maintain this. And inflation is real, it exists. So,
yeah, that's a very valid point. One of the nuances of the annexation to Sunset, is this tax going to apply to the residents of Sunset this year?
Sunset was actually quoted, as what was passed on to the residents was the current tax rate, and that is what we will be maintaining.
Okay, so this wouldn't be a surprise to the residents?
No, it's exactly what's been expected.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I appreciate that.
And we had a chance to go and meet with the chief, for several hours on Friday, and, we just went over several of the items, that the mayor had talked about. Liability insurance has tripled in 5 years. Insurance premiums have doubled. We've been really dependent on ambulance revenue, but we're expected to hit 4,000 calls, and so the demand running out of those stations, even without it's, even in looking at holding the rate, it was still to be able to run as meager as you can. So instead of, as the mayor brought up, doing 1 battalion chief or even 3, we're doing acting battalion chief. So even right there, it's being able to budget there. So it's that 137,000-ish out of a $4.2 million budget is, a fairly small amount, and we're still going to be under.
A lot of people, we talk about it a lot, but a lot of people don't know Clearfield City, or the fire station here in Clearfield City, is the busiest fire station in the county. So it's not, we don't have the busiest fire department, but that's the busiest station. And so, we have a a lot to keep up on.
Well, I appreciate the explanation and all that too, because I think we're all concerned about that, because even to me, $11 a year is still $11 a year, and I look at the people on fixed incomes and things, and you probably all had that same shock when you got your tax statement this year and say, yeah, they want $11, they want $5, they want $10, and suddenly, you know, ironically, I just had a conversation with my mother-in-law 2 weeks ago about how people don't seem to understand what it's like to live on a fixed income when you don't get any more money every year.
Exactly.
But everybody says, oh, $10 is not a big deal. Well, my income hasn't increased for 5 years, but my taxes, anyway, you understand the concept. So I want to be able to be very confident that this is a true need and not something that just because we can.
You bet. I thank you for doing that. It's exactly what we did last night, so. Okay,
Mayor Shepherd, could I just clarify that when, if the council chooses to make a motion to approve this resolution, the tax rate is a blank line in our resolution because the Fire District Board did not approve this resolution until last night. So we would want you to clarify what that tax rate will be. And it would be, we've put the Fire District's resolution on the dais for you.
Yeah.
That tax rate would be 0.001182.
okay. Council, if there's no further questions, I'd entertain a motion.
Your Honor, I move to approve Resolution 2017R-11, adopting and certifying the tax rate for the North Davis Fire District's 2017 tax year as .001182, and would authorize your signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Peterson?
Aye.
Councilmember Roper?
Aye.
Councilmember Phipps?
Aye.
Councilmember Young?
Aye.
And Councilmember Bush?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Item number 6 is to consider approval of ordinance 2017-15, authorizing the rezone of the property located at or near 1200 South State, 1250 South State, and 1400 South, 1000 East from M1 Manufacturing and C2 Commercial to MUSP, mixed use with special purpose overlay. This is the piece that we just had Spencer cover for us. Council, any further questions?
Spencer, just the question I had asked earlier on condition of approval number 4 and having the language match up with the resolution on that, with the idea of adding, just perhaps as a technicality, but the additional, not just the master development plan being required, but also the development agreement on that as well.
We can do that, make that change, absolutely.
So, if you'll indulge me for a minute, because I see this not as one specific item, but like you said, we're doing a series of dominoes here. And if you'll indulge me for a minute, I would like to step back and look at the entire puzzle that this is one piece of. And I want to just say what I think is happening there to make sure that I have a full understanding of that. And so the Sadler property then will include a manufacturing site. Just stop me when I'm wrong, okay? The height of the building as anticipated to be 65 feet, where they'll construct rail cars for, at least currently, for Caltran. And 2 or potentially 3 tracks will come in from the north into the bays of the property. The assumption is one of those tracks will need to connect to the Union Pacific tracks eventually. Then north of the property, paralleling the road there will be a lengthy electrified track where they can run their test of the trains there. And then the road to the east of that will be a city road that will be wider than normal, I guess. And so is that road, this is for is that road something that we will build, or is that?
So I don't know if I don't recall that the road would be wider than normal. It would be
isn't it? Okay.
standards. part of that is that road would be paid for with, and I'm blanking, thank you, tax increment funding sources for the purposes of extending that road to the north to connect to Depot Street where it is, coming off 700 South there, so.
So the order of business then, and I understand that the parts will come from literally all over the country and be assembled here. But one of the largest components would be, I guess, the frame or whatever of the rail car itself, and hence the need for the large turnarounds and things like that because of the large transportation mechanisms. The supplies for this, for the rail supplies, are anticipated coming on the freeway, coming off 700 South and something like that, and working their way down.
Trucks would be bringing those things into the site for assembly and the other operations that would happen on site.
Okay. And then, and we'll get into the MOU later, the anticipation is that for this to come to fruition, that the city will be responsible for constructing a parking garage. And that will probably be, I mean, because of the 1,000-foot restriction, it'll be somewhere in parcel C there.
So yeah, there's several components that are kind of at play here. The first step in the process is for, sorry, I'll turn that on. The first component of this project is really, with all the intricacies involved, is that Stadler locates on the site. That property is purchased by the city from UTA and sold to Stadler for the purposes of development of this facility. From there, again, the rezone of the properties is happening so that the city can facilitate the development opportunities. Part of those future development opportunities would be a parking structure of some sort. All of those specifics haven't been worked out yet. But yeah, that's a part of the long-term plan for the site.
Well, and I'm looking kind of, even though they're discussed separately, I'm looking at kind of these two as a pair, because in the MOU, it says we'll build it.
Right.
We'll spend $13.8 million, we'll
Right.
build it. So thinking, even though this is rezoned, well, we rezone it and then under the MOU, then I think it's fair to say UTA anticipates that we will build a parking structure there.
Right, and I haven't been as involved in the MOU, so I wouldn't be able to speak to that specifically, but the rezoning of the property is really to lay the groundwork so that we have, again, ducks in a row, dominoes in effect, so that we are ready to do the things that need to be done to develop the site. But I wouldn't be able to speak to the MOU. I would defer to JJ on that, if there's questions specific to that.
Yeah, I'm happy to clarify a little bit. And back on Depot Street, just for a minute, where we mentioned tax increment would be a funding source. It's one of a few potential funding sources for those improvements. There could be other resources as well from the state and the county that would come to bear to make those improvements happen as a part of the total package for Stadler Rail. Regarding the parking structure, it's important to note that the funding source for that parking structure would be tax increment from the Clearfield Station Community Development Area, which is in place, but which we would need to coordinate with the other taxing entities for an amendment to those interlocal agreements to really have access or trigger the collection of those funds. So to say that the city would construct the parking structure is probably not really accurate. It would probably be UTA putting that contract out, and we would provide the funding for it. And however that happens is yet to be determined. That could be a tax increment participation agreement between the Clearfield CDRA and UTA. The UTA would use that funding then to service the debt, for example, on the parking structure. That's one possibility. They could, for example, as UTA plans for transit-oriented development in that lower left-hand portion of the property, they could have whoever ends up developing that be responsible for constructing the parking structure, and then that developer ends up receiving the tax increment incentive as a reimbursement for those costs. those are just a couple possibilities. But the important point is that through the MOU, we're agreeing, or rather the CDRA is agreeing, that given these certain assumptions, that the property develops and it generates enough tax increment, that it is and always has been an intention to construct a parking structure. Does that
And I
help?
know I'm blending, but that's, again, I'm kind of a 30,000-foot level and
Right.
looking at all of this as one unit, even though there's some disjoint things on the agenda tonight.
Well, the two do go hand in hand. The
Yeah.
MUSP overlay, first of all, the special purpose overlay in our code requires a contract.
Mhm.
And this MOU serves as the contract for these purposes, for the zoning. And so they do go hand in hand, absolutely.
But it seems clear to me, although the wording sometimes gets a little weaselly, that UTA and in their design specifications, they recognize the goal is, and that's no surprise, we've been dealing with it for over a decade, that their goal is to increase ridership by increasing residential next to their rail stops. And so that's a weaselly way of saying UTA is going to want the high-density stuff, especially in parcel C in that.
Well, the good thing is, however we feel about that, there's a lot to be determined still. What we're committing to through the MOU is a station area planning effort. UTA owns the land, but Clearfield is the land use authority. And we have a lot of leverage in that regard. So together, we will commence on this station area planning process with public input, and we'll come up with a really solid plan for what that part of the property should look like. And we should anticipate that it will be mixed use. I would expect some residential. How much remains to be determined.
Yeah, the nuance, though, is by accepting the MOA, we accept the design specifications, and I can't remember the name of the document, which right at the beginning of it says, hey, we want a lot of residential because we want to increase ridership. And so even, that's why I say that in kind of a indirect way, we are understanding that UTA, that's their objective when they go into this.
It's true.
And so we can do whatever we want, but we have agreed with UTA's objective, and their objective is to increase ridership by increasing residential next to their rail stops.
And one of the factors, as we go into this process, one of the factors that should be considered is that already under construction are 216 residential units.
Mm-hmm.
And that should be considered a part of the overall plan,
Mm-hmm.
the station area plan. So we're already well on our way to whatever that target number is.
Well, and as a side, my personal opinion is that it's going to be difficult to develop much when you have a fairly significant manufacturing entity literally at your back door. I mean, I envision this facility looking much like the Warm Springs facility in Salt Lake, similar kind of a facility. I have a hard time imagining attractive residential or even commercial located to where you go out the front door and see a 65-foot building out there. And in a very busy situation now with potential of 1,000 employees, several hundred tenants already in the current Thackeray Garn development, plus additional development, plus the very busy rail stop with hundreds of people traveling there. It's going to be interesting to find anything that's going to be attractive to go there. But that's a commentary. Now I did, if I understand correctly, because one of the discussions before, there was an indication that potentially Statler would be interested in running rail from parcel D up to their current site. That was just brought up in a meeting we were in. There's a line in that I just want to make sure that I understood it in the MOU that says, no, we're not going to allow that to happen. Did I read that right, or?
No, that is actually one of the points that I wanted to touch on. So thanks for hitting on it already. In section 4F of the MOU, it reads,
No rail service or rail facilities will be allowed or permitted on that portion of the UTA property lying between or otherwise connecting in any way the city requested property and the option property. That language, I've talked with UTA, and they've agreed that the words "or otherwise connecting in any way" can be stricken. Because our most recent conversations with Stadler and with UTA, and all seemed to be in agreement, is that if there is a, pardon my lack of engineering and rail engineering expertise, but a light gauge rail line within the right-of-way, so just west of the apartments, within the right-of-way, not on UTA property, but within the right-of-way, connecting the southern facility with the main facility, that should be doable for Stadler. They do desire that, and it would not be objectionable to UTA. Now, of course, we would have our own engineering review of that. We would need to make sure that any issues of safety, public safety, are mitigated. So it could be restrictions on the time of day that's used, or the duration that's used, or whatever. But we can work through those aspects. So I'm glad you brought that up. We would suggest striking those words "or otherwise connecting in any way" from 4F.
So what I thought F meant was not what I thought. So there still is a potential for that rail linkage between the Stadler property and parcel D.
Yeah. UTA's concern was just that parcel C not be crossed by a rail line.
Okay.
And so if we stay within the street, then UTA is fine with that.
Although, another commentary, I think that also degrades the usability of that. I can't imagine wanting to live in a situation where you've got the UP Tracks front runner, the parking garage, a manufacturing facility to the north of you, another one to the south of you, and another rail track to the east of you. It looks to me like I'm building a house in the middle of Freeport Center.
It would be interesting, certainly, and no doubt about it. These facilities will be much more attractive than Freeport or than Warm Springs, especially. The rail connection between those two properties would be used very infrequently, and should hardly be noticed, except that it's there in the ground. It would be constructed in a way that it's not a huge bump as you drive over it. It's like, for example, on 193, where there's a rail crossing, and it's really smooth driving over that.
Yeah.
That's the type of rail crossing that we would anticipate there.
Okay, I appreciate your tolerance to me as I drill down into this.
Mayor, we got moving on to item number 6 as well, but.
Yeah, I know if there's anything else you want to cover, because then we just won't go back and cover it, so if you want to.
The only other item, well, let me back up a second on this MOU while we're talking about it. My staff report just takes a big picture, kind of hits the bullet points, the summary of the purpose of this MOU. First of all, UTA agrees to sell to Clearfield the 28.25 acres, which is the big white space for the main Stadler facility. And that includes rights-of-way as well for Stadler Way and for Depot Street. The price has already been determined through an appraisal, and roughly we're talking $4 million, as we mentioned in our work session a couple weeks ago. Then, as we discussed, the CDRA through the Clearfield Station CDA would provide funding for a parking structure of at least 700 stalls. Stadler would need to construct a sewer lift station that would serve not only their project, but the whole property. Back when we were talking about a master development of the entire 70 acres, a sewer lift station was part of those plans and would have served the whole property. So UTA's concern was just that the lift station be sized for the entire property, or what remains of it, excluding the Thackeray Garn apartment project. We talked about the station area plan and how we're both committing to work together on the station area plan, and really the plan is to seek some grant funding for that, just like we did for the downtown small area plan. And another point is that if this all occurs, UTA's board wanted to have a first right of refusal. If Stadler ever ceases operations, or if the facility ceases to be used as a rail car manufacturing facility, that UTA have the ability to purchase that, the first option to purchase the property. And it makes sense. I mean, it's a rail facility. They might have interest in acquiring that, and that would be at the value of the property at that point in time. So I think that covers the basics of the purpose of the MOU. It does have some financial, fiscal impacts. Obviously, the CDRA, and this is on the agenda both for the City Council and then again later in the meeting for the CDRA, because it's a three-party memorandum of understanding. The CDRA makes some commitments for that parking structure funding, and also that's how we would be purchasing the land, is through the CDRA. So Stadler's already identified they have $2 million to purchase the property from Clearfield. So that leaves us with about a $2 million gap that we would either borrow from within the CDRA or borrow from enterprise funds from the city or borrow externally, and then be able to repay ourselves or service that debt through tax increment over time. That's the concept that we've talked about. More importantly, it's a huge economic development project. That's why we've spent so much time on it for all these months, is the job creation, the capital investment, the catalyst that it would be for development at that end of the corridor and entrance into our city. And while I agree, Vern, Councilmember Phipps, there are questions as to what the remainder parcels would look like, but that's why we go through this station area plan, to have experts in planning help us understand how to blend in those uses and make it look natural and attractive and really an exciting place to be. So that's not my forte. I can't say, well, you could do this and that, but I do know there's potential there, and we know that the development community is watching this closely. They are interested in developing there. So I think that's a good recap of the MOU. Spencer gave the presentation on the rezone to MUSP. With that, are there any other questions for me or Spencer on either of these items?
Okay, thanks, JJ.
Yep.
We'll bump back to item number 6 then. I would entertain a motion on the ordinance 2017.
Your Honor, I'd like to reiterate what I said before when we talked about prior rezone. There are a few times in our political career where we'll have such a significant impact upon our community as this. Almost everything we do can be undone or redone or resolved or something. But this is changing Clearfield for at least a generation, and it's turning an area down there to, no matter what kind of lipstick we put on it, it is a manufacturing facility, and we're turning it into a facility, like I said, surrounded by rail cars, and the largest building that any of us can imagine to the north of us, and somehow thinking that's going to be attractive. I think that the economic benefit is certainly a benefit to the city, to the state, and probably to the county, but to Clearfield, we're not going to have 1,000 people looking for a manufacturing job that are residents of Clearfield. Otherwise, we would have, we well meet that need between the other manufacturing facilities that we already have existing in Clearfield. Utility trailer and Lifetime certainly fit that bill, and I don't think there's going to be a clamor for us, our children, our neighbors, to go say, I can hardly wait till that facility is built so that my son can get a job working manufacturing rail cars. And I don't think that that's going to be an attractive neighborhood that's going to attract viable business or viable residents. As I mentioned before, I can't personally imagine living willingly for an extended period of time in that kind of a community. So I think it's going to be one of the things that people are going to say 5 or 10 years from now. What were they thinking when they did that, and what was going on in their mind? So, I think it's one of the major mistakes that we're on the cusp of doing. Like many other things that we still live with decades later in the city. So, I don't mean to vent, but I do want it on the record how I feel. Maybe I'll be delightfully surprised in 10 years from now. That's a booming, phenomenal place. I have a feeling it's going to be a Warm Springs kind of a facility, only with residential and some commercial next to it. And so I think Sadler, I would love to have them be in Utah. I think it's a great thing. If they're over in Freeport Center, I would be beating a path to their door. But doing that kind of thing at this piece of property it certainly will impact the rest of the development in that area, but not in the way that I think that we're anticipating. So, but maybe I'm wrong. It'll be curious to see when their contract is done with Contrail in 4 or 5 years, whether they say, thanks very much, Utah, for spending multiple tens of millions of dollars to get us here, and now we're going to go back to Switzerland because we don't have anything else to do in the U.S. And then, for the life of me, I don't know what UTA will do buying that facility. I guess they'll probably use it to maintain their own cars. So.
Okay, thank you. Council, I'd entertain a motion.
And I think I'd like to just state a couple counterpoints in as Councilmember Phipps said. 1,000 jobs, whether or not our children are going to beat the doors to help manufacture those rails. As you increase the demand for labor, it goes across the board and increases the value of helping to find positions and keeping the economy healthy. 2, I think that location, being in proximity to the Freeport Center in the first place, we've looked at that for years and seen the commercial aspects failing around it. And also the other thing is about the MOU. You have some valid points, whether or not that's feasible for quality residential living. That being said, I am confident in the process that we went through with the small area plans in the other parts of the city, with all the input that we gathered from residents in the city, and that it came out with a very positive, healthy plan for those other areas. And I'm sure that putting it through such a rigorous process would, I have confidence that that process would help define what that remaining parcel could be used is best and best use could be in that area. I understand that UTA likes residential, but they also, within that same document, do specify that that plan is going to take place and that it's going to be determined, and we have provided residential already, or we have then Thackeray Garn as a part of this development provided it. So,
If I can jump in on that as well. When I first started doing city government, 2009, I remember being a brand new planning commissioner and sitting in on a planning and envisioning meeting for this property. And I walked in and saw a big overhead projection of 3,000 apartment units. And that was the plan that UTA had for Clearfield at that time. And my initial reaction looking at that was it felt like the projects. It felt like we were walking into a concrete jungle and that it would be a high crime area. And I just remember being overwhelmed by, what am I doing? As this has evolved, though, the exciting thing for me about the Stadler, though, even though with any project there are certainly going to be unknowns, is the investment on that is the entire north half of this property, instead of being just all apartments now, falls in line with Clearfield's absolute strength, which is, our manufacturing community. with a beautiful building and something that absolutely matches up across the tracks. I mean, we've got a Marigold going in, which is a substantial structure right across the tracks. I feel like they're congruent. But it gives us, for the first time in any plan that I've seen, just in the few years I've been here, the opportunity to actually shape what this property does along State Street for the residents who will live in Clearfield. So much of this will be oriented toward the tracks, and it always has been designed to be that way. But there are exciting possibilities that this plan I see that I've never seen before, with those remaining parcels and the opportunities to develop that and to be able to service our community and be able to blend from State Street to the tracks and not have either sole industrial or sole housing, but to find something that is a mix. And this is the closest thing that I've seen to that, and so I'm excited by that prospect.
Yeah, as I look through this UTA proposal, this is for the remainder of the property, not the Stadler piece. The Stadler stays M. This mixed use is more closely to a real TOD that I've actually seen UTA come up with, which is what I envisioned for this from the beginning. So this MUSP really is close to an actual TOD. So, if we could get the whole thing that way, to me it'd be better, but that's not going to happen. So the remainder needs to look like a TOD, which UTA has come up with, I think. I don't know why they didn't do this 10 years ago, but they're just now getting to it.
Yeah. Well, and it is it's been zoned, just keeping in mind that property's been zoned M1 for forever. I mean, it has been envisioned, at least for a long time, as a manufacturing piece of Clearfield. Abuts Freeport Center, that would be a typical use for it. Well, very good. Then, council, I will entertain a motion, if someone would like to make that.
Your Honor, I would move to approve ordinance, I should have got the right one here, 2017-15?
That'd be the one.
That's the one. Authorizing the rezone of property located at or near 1200 South State, 1250 South State, and 1400 South 1000 East from M1 Manufacturing and C2 Commercial to MUSP Mixed Use with a Special Purpose Overlay, and would authorize your signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. Councilmember Peterson?
Aye.
Councilmember Bush?
Aye.
Councilmember Young?
Aye.
Councilmember Roper?
Aye.
And Councilmember Phipps?
Nay.
Okay. That passes 4-1. And item number 7 is to consider approval of the memorandum of understanding with UTA and, regarding the development of the property there. Do we need any further discussion on that? We have covered it all. So if there's no other further comments, we'll take a motion on that.
Your Honor, I move to approve the memorandum of understanding with Utah Transit Authority, UTA, regarding the development of property at or near 1200 South State Street, 1250 South State, or 1200 South State, 1250 South State, and 1400 South, 1000 East, and authorize your signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Thank you. That brings us to item number 8, was to consider approval of the award of bid for the 2017 road maintenance project to Staker Parsons Companies. Scott, if you want to come up and give us some background there.
Mayor, council, it's good to be with you this evening. Recently, the city asked for bids to do our annual maintenance on roads in the city. We received 2 bids. The lowest bid was received from Staker Parsons Company. Their bid was $627,068.80. With this bid, we will be doing with chip seal on several streets. We're finishing up a couple of neighborhoods within the community. One of those neighborhoods is down by 360 West. There's a couple of streets down there and then some cul-de-sacs that we will be working on. And then the other neighborhood that we'll be finishing up is down in the south end of town in the Melanie Acres subdivision area. There's some streets down there that we've not put any treatments on. And so we'll finish up that neighborhood with chip seal. And then up in the Legend Hills area on 1500 East, Legend Hills Drive, 1400 South and 1450 South, those streets will receive a chip seal. Within those residential neighborhoods, the cul-de-sacs will not get a chip seal, they'll get a slurry seal on those streets. That's a new process we're trying to see how that holds up in the cul-de-sacs where tires are turning more. Hopefully they won't pull the chips up off the roads like we've experienced in other cul-de-sacs. We're trying that process to see if that works. That was recommended by one of the asphalt companies that might be something that we should try. Also with this bid, we will be doing some resurfacing on 1000 West from 300 North to 800 North. We will mill the surface of that road down 1.5 inches and put a new asphalt overlay on that section of road. And then on 1000 West from SR 193 down to the railroad spur on the east side of the road. That side of the road Clearfield City owns. The west side is owned by Syracuse, so on the side we own, we will mill that surface down and put 1.5 inch overlay on it. And then on 300 North from Main Street down to the bridge where the ramp starts up for the overpass there or the railroad tracks, we will mill that surface down 1.5 inches and put an overlay on that as well. And then there is a small section of trail that we will be putting the surface on. So that pretty much handles all the work that this project will be doing for us this year. Engineers have reviewed the bids. There's one item in the bid that will be changing. There is line item number 9, which dealing with the trail. As we talked with the contractor, that number that came in on the bid was wrong, and so the price will be reduced by $16,625. We will make that change order first thing after this is awarded. We will make that change, but we would recommend that that be awarded to Parsons Stakers for their bid amount of $627,068.80. There's a contingency in there for miscellaneous things and engineering of $27,000 and some change. The total project cost would be $655,000 even would be the total project. Any questions?
Yes. Could you comment on how these roads that you're working on are selected? Because everybody in the city thinks their road should be done, so.
What we do is every 3 or 4 years, 5 years, we have a pavement assessment done of all our roads within the city. And we have a consultant drive the roads. They go out and analyze the surface condition. We get a ranking of those surface conditions. And the ranking goes from intersection to intersection up and down a road. So not the entire length. A longer road might have 2 or 3 different ratings depending on what's happened within that road different sections. So we, based off of those surveys that we do, we analyze what roads need to be done. We keep track of what areas we've handled in past years. And so what we're really trying to do is get to a point to where we're in a systematic way of getting through all the roads in a 10-year period. So we're putting some kind of surface treatment down. I'm not sure if we'll ever get to that point because an example of that, 1000 West between 300 North and 800 North was not even on our radar of one of those streets that we should be doing this year. But because of the winter we had last year, it did not hold up very well. So it came to the area where we needed to do something. So it's one of those things that you just have to go out on a yearly basis, see where your road conditions are, and do what you can with the money you have to work with.
Appreciate that.
Scott, we talked in the work session about the timing on that. Once this bid is awarded, what's the timeframe as far as start work specifically for the portion that would be right there in front of Holt Elementary with the school starting?
Right now, don't know until we have a pre-construction meeting. We'll award it. We'll have a pre-construction meeting. As we have that meeting, we'll sit down with the contractor, get their work schedule, and at that point, we'll have an idea of what areas they will come in and do first. And we will try to encourage them to do whatever they can to get that area done early on in the process. Other things we can do where that is in the school areas is we can encourage them to do that on a weekend. Sometime it would not have as big impact on the school.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments for Scott? Okay.
Thank you.
And I move to approve the award of bid for the 2017 road maintenance project to Staker Parsing Companies with the bid amount of $627,068.80 for the standard weight chip option, with contingency and engineering of $27,931.20 for a total project cost of $655,000, and authorize your signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that is unanimous. Brings us to our communication items. Just wanted to thank our police department, staff, community services for our night out against crime. It was a hot night. I think almost everybody ended up inside the pool in lieu of staying outside. It looked pretty sparse after a little while, but thanks to your department and your folks as well as fire district for being there and supporting us. It was a good night. Enjoyed it. Had a chance to go out to tour of Utah this past week and kick that off in Layton. I still think we need to find a way to make them kick that off in Clearfield. Get our fair turn at that, and maybe turn through Sunset. We'll see if we can keep pushing them on that. But it was a great event, and certainly economically for the county is a pretty good shot to starting and finishing within the county. And then met yesterday with the Idaho National Guard to give them advice and help on they're in the final stages of securing an F-35 program for the Guard in Idaho up in Boise, and so they're in the final 5, and so they asked to get together yesterday and kind of pick brains on how that's affected our residents and how that might affect theirs. Big difference, with ours. We went from F-16s and still going from F-16s to an F-35. They're going from an A-10 program to an F-35, which is a significantly louder platform there. So, but good meeting with them. Always good to meet with mayors from the other states. So it's good to have the mayor of Boise down here. That is all I had. Councilmember Young.
Just add mine, the night out against crime was fun. I'm still not absolutely sure who the dog and dummies were. But that's it.
Okay, Councilmember Bush.
Just to thank you for the night out against crime. That was good. And I also had a chance to go to the Circles graduation on, I think it was the 27th. And that was a good event also.
Councilmember Peterson.
Jump on the Night Out Against Crime bandwagon as well, and I appreciate the invitation that went out to include our Circles partners in that as well. A reminder that the New Hope Fellowship will be having their block party this Saturday from 4 to 7 p.m. where they hand out several hundred, I think it's 750 is the anticipated donation amount that's going out this year to families that are struggling to get their kids ready for back to school. And so it's a great opportunity and event that we have here. It's there at their food bank location that's right off of State Street in Clearfield. So that'll be this afternoon, or Saturday afternoon, with several other community partners. So encourage anyone who'd like to come out and see that in action to do so.
Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know where that is right next to Star Cafe. Right. Is there space right there? It used to be dry cleaners. Okay. Councilmember Roper.
I will say thanks to the police department as well for Night Out Against Crime. I spoke to people from other communities who were pretty impressed with what we do here. Other communities pretty much was their elected officials touting what they do, and we actually put our police department up to show off. And who doesn't like getting spray from the ladder truck? So my kids really enjoyed that part. But I also wanted to commend our fire chief as well. He spent probably 2.5 hours with us after he got off a flight. So it was pretty awesome to have him take the time to go through that. He really cares for this community and wants to keep it safe.
I appreciate him doing that, and applaud you two for sitting down with him for that much time to go over the budget and have your questions answered. That was, that's good. I forget sometimes that you don't have that opportunity. I sit on the budget committee there, so we've torn through it for months, and we've gone back and torn through it through months, and come back, and
We were like,
and
oh,
then
we've got to go through this now.
I see Tim's post going, I just spent 2.5 hours doing this with the budget. I'm thinking, okay, oh yeah, I guess he hasn't gone through it that way yet. So
Makes
yeah.
sense.
So yeah, for Chief to spend that much time is admirable. It's good to make sure that everyone's up to date, up to speed. Councilmember Phipps.
I have nothing.
Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of our city council meeting. We need a motion to adjourn as the city council and reconvene as the CDRA. Oh, excuse me, I kind of skipped Adam. Do we have any staff reports, Adam? Yeah, all right.
Nancy may have
I missed a whole city manager's
important,
report and a staff report.
and
Yeah.
Nancy may have
This
some
is what
important
happens
information.
when I'm not able to go to staff meeting in the morning. I just totally forget about the staff report.
Well, our monthly report went out earlier today. Yeah, if you have any questions, there's a lot of information in there. Really exciting progress with the playgrounds. If you haven't seen those, they continue to go in. You'll notice that there is still a little bit of a barrier around Cornerstone Park. We're asking the children to please try to stay off that. We know it's hard to resist, but we're still a couple more days out to get the concrete work done there so that we can put in the fall material. We know kids are still playing on it anyways, but great playground, great facility. And then also just if you haven't seen the new sign that's at the cemetery, that looks really nice. That's been installed, and if you haven't seen it, go by and check that one out. But that's the style that we intend on placing in all of our parks over time. But a lot more happening, and as you read that report, if you have any questions, please let us know.
Thanks, Adam. Nancy?
Just our schedule, we have no meeting scheduled for Tuesday, August 15th, but we'll be in work session and policy session on the 22nd, and the rest of our schedule's yet to develop, so we'll just keep you posted as that develops.
Okay, very good. I should mention that we did hold our wrap-up meeting today, finally, for the 4th of July, and hammered out a lot of standard concerns that come up every year and different things that, you just change one year to another. But a lot of things we'll focus on for next year, and unfortunately, we start about, a month and a half from now planning next year, so back to the grindstone. Okay, well, if there's no other items then, I'd entertain that motion.
I'll move to adjourn the city council and reconvene as CDRA.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
All right, so here's where the minutes are. First item of business we have is to consider approval of minutes from June 13th, 2017 policy session and the July 18th, 2017 work session. Has everybody had a chance to review those? They accept a motion to approve if there's...
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from June 13th and July 18th.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And now, we're going to talk about memorandum of understanding, this time with CDRA. This is regarding the development of property at or near 1200 South State, 1250 South State, and 1400 South, 1000 East. So we have already had some background. I would say, are there any questions at this point, or any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the memorandum of understanding with Utah Transit Authority regarding the development of the property at or near 1200 South State, 1250 South State, and 1400 South, 1000 East, and authorize the chair's signature to any necessary documents.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on this before we go on to vote? All right, Director Shepherd, how do you vote?
Aye.
Director Phipps?
Nay.
Director, I'm going to say Tim, but it's Roper. Director
Aye.
Roper? Director Peterson?
Aye.
and Director Bush.
Aye.
Okay, that's passes 4-1. And moves on. The next item of business is consider the approval of real estate purchase agreement for the property located at 17 and 51 North Main Street from the Joseph Jerry Knight Family Trust. And could we get some background on that, JJ?
As allowed by state statute, we discussed this item in a closed meeting a couple of weeks ago. And since then, we've successfully negotiated to purchase this property. We have it under contract now at the price of $1 million for the 2.34 acres. It's 2 larger parcels and 1 just little sliver. The timeline to close on this would be about 30 days from now, sooner if we can accommodate that. But we are in the middle now of the due diligence period, and so we are reviewing the environmental documents, which are if there's anything of concern, it would be environmental. So that's what we're looking at now to make sure that there's nothing else that we need to take care of. We'll have a survey done, and if in our due diligence we as staff feel that there's something more that needs to be negotiated, an addendum to the contract, then we would request that the CDRA board authorize staff to take those necessary steps. For example, if anything needs to be excavated, if we find out that there is something on the property that needs to be mitigated, and there would be costs, then one approach might be to set aside from the purchase price $100,000 in an escrow account to address those costs if there are any, and put an expiration date of 12 months on that or something of that sort. Of course, that would need to be negotiated with the seller. But so far from the reports that exist, it looks like things are clean. We just want to make extra sure. So that's kind of where we stand right now. We're very excited for the prospect of having all of that property under our control and being able to really complement the creation here of our civic core of our downtown area with that corner property. So that's where we stand. Are there any other questions?
And I brought this up before, the environmental concern, just because when I was involved in this before, it was really a big deal. And so I just have, every once in a while, just bubbles to the top of my mind. But so there are reports in place that are going to certify that there's no hazardous materials there.
Right now, the Utah Division of Environmental Quality has given a letter of no further action.
Okay.
So that's a good sign.
Yeah, that is. Okay.
We just want to make extra sure. Adam seems to recall that there might be some buried tires, but we can't find the report that indicates that, so that's one thing that we're going to try to track down. And I've got to call into DEQ to talk with the project manager there and make sure that what we're interpreting from these reports is true, that it's a clean site and there should be no issues. The reason why there was some mitigation in the past is that the gas tanks, the fuel tanks that were underground decades ago did leak. And so there was remediation on the site. The material was removed, new fill brought in at the time, so many years ago. Right now, like I said, there's a letter of no further action required.
Okay. Yeah, and I think there was concern about oil lube stuff from the junkyard too, getting into the ground too. So
yeah, they've done test wells and everything to show
So
that while there is